Here's a video how you can take and change your background on your Holley Pro Dash. And I'll start off by clearing this gauge panel. And what you want to do is you want to click on your screen, bring up the menu on the right hand side, click menu, click customize, click OK, and then click anywhere on the screen that there's no gauge installed. If you click on a gauge, it's going to show you which gauge that is active, that this menu here is active. So what you want to do is you want to take and click on part of the background that does not have a gauge. Then you'll get at this menu right here. So I want to layout, and I want to clear this layout, and then save it. So now you have no gauges and no background. So once you have a background you like loaded to a USB, put the USB into the port going to your dash, and once it pulls up, you'll see the little arrow saying that the dash has found your USB. So then click menu, click customize, click OK, and then anywhere on the dash you want to take and click, and then come down to background first, and then click change. Then you'll see your internal, which is the actual dash itself, the memory or the hard drive, if it is a hard drive on the dash, and that'll show your defaults. I've got more folders in here. That's the reason why there's more things listed. But anyway, you need to go to your USB, and you pick a loaded background. Of course, these are all ones that I already have, but you can see that it gives you a preview of the one that you select. So if I select this one, it'll bring up this background here. And if you like that with 12 digital gauges, just highlight it, make sure it's highlighted blue, and if you come down any, it's going to highlight that. So make sure when you do get on this and click it, you come straight off the end so you don't lose it, and then click OK, and it'll load your background with no gauges on it. After you get this up here, I always like to take and save this layout. And sometimes the mouse cursor will actually disappear if you don't do that. If you don't save it, that is. But anyway, to add a gauge, click the menu, click customize, click OK, and you want to add a digital gauge right here. So anywhere on the background that don't have a gauge already set up, and this one right here, it could be anywhere, but to make it easy, click here, then add, then gauge, and here it'll list everything in your Holley ECU, including your local input-output, which is actually the dash itself. And this is what you can choose from in the dash only. And of course, I've got some of this custom set up for me in my car. But we want to add a speedometer right now. So let's go to actually it's in the local I/O on the dash. So click GPS speed, and then click OK. And then this menu actually gives you the type of dash you want, or gauge. It's an analog gauge, bar graph, digital, RPM bar, things like that, but we want an analog gauge. So there's the new analog speedometer, and you can't move it until you click on the gauge and then click move. Then you can hold your finger on the dash if you don't have a mouse hooked up, and you could just place it up here on the speedometer, and you can see the crossbar or the cross target that you can take and kind of line it up with the top and the side, because that's how big it's going to be once we get it set up. So once you get it placed, click on the gauge that you just put up there and then click customize. And here is where you set up this gauge for how you want it to look on the background. And of course, under the label, which you see right here, it displays GPS speed. And we don't want that to be displaying on our new background, so we want to click or unclick or uncheck that and click OK. So now you see that's gone. The units is mile per hour. The range, and here's where you have to set the range up on your dash. And the range of the speedometer is from 0 to 160 mile an hour. So we want to click on here, and we want to actually double click. That's how you pull this right here up. And we want to clear that out and put this as 160 as the max. So that's your minimum speedometer speed and max. If you want a minimum of 20 mile per hour, you can put 20 in the minimum, and the speedometer needle will start at 20. But anyway, click OK, and that you will see will set up 0 to 160. Now this right here is not, well, it's just odd. So in order to get this reading like 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, we need to change these tick marks or segments. The little ones are actually called tick marks, and the larger ones is actually called segments. So, and you can see right here it says the number of steps will automatically change from 6 to 10. So that means this right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 10 once we take and hit OK. Alright, so then you see the speedometer with 10 or 11 of these segments there. And of course that's way too many for our background. So we want to change that. So we scroll down and we click segments. And you can change the segments to, I believe this right here, 7 or 8. Let's try 7. And you don't have to put exactly what it's recommended. And okay, that didn't get it even, so let's do 8. There you go. Takes 8 segments for the background. Alright. Now, once we click OK, we can see that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Click on the gauge again. Click Customize. And let's get the size. So let's scroll down to the size of the gauge, which is 200. And for this particular background, and again, I'm kind of doing this fast, but if you want to change this, you touch part of the black and it pops this number pad up. So we want to clear this, and you'll have to play around with the sizing of each gauge unless you already know the size. And I think this one is actually 380 85 if I remember right. And then see, it's almost the size of the one that is on the background. All right, so we're getting a little closer. So there's also an option that lets you eliminate this silver ring, or the beauty ring is what I call it. So again, go back into the customize, go all the way down to the bottom, and here you see border style and border. So the border would be the ring, and the border style is what color it is. Alright, so we just want to eliminate this ring altogether, so we just disable, and see, the ring disappears. Alright, at this time now we want to eliminate the value display. So the value display, or the scales value, excuse me, you want to disable those, because we already have numbers set up on the background that look better than the factory, that Holley, in my opinion. And the black right here, we need to make that transparent so that we can see through it, so that we can see the numbers. Because right now, if we go out, see, it hides the number on the background, which is part of the background. You're not going to be able to change these numbers at all, because, like I say, that is part of the background that you downloaded. So anyway, let's go back to customize. Let's scroll down to transparency, and then we want to slide this all the way over to 0. And then when we click OK, now we don't see the preview of the background, or the black background of the gauge. And then we click OK, and now we can actually see the tick marks and the segments and the background numbers. So as you can see, this right here needs to be resized a little larger. So let's go back to customize. Let's go down to size, and let's increase the size to 400. Then click OK, then OK, and then OK. And now you can see that they're spread wider. So now we need to move the gauge again. So let's click on the gauge, select move, and then you can move this gauge around anywhere you want it. And we want it to line up with the numbers, the segments, that is. And we can see that it's still a little too small, and the segments is actually going over top of the numbers. So release the gauge, go back into customize, go back to size, and then let's increase it again. Let's go to 410, and then click OK, and OK, and OK, and then let's move the gauge again. Okay, so now we're getting very close to how it needs to be replaced. I mean, not replaced, but set up. And I tend to like the tick marks a little close to the numbers, like this. So I think I'll leave it there. You put on the size of your gauge, you just put it the way you like it. Now that this is set up, you can actually save it. So let's save it. So there's your speedometer set up. And to do the other gauges, you basically do the same thing to every single other analog gauge. Alright, so let's set the tachometer up. This is going to be the same way, except for I'm going to go a little quicker. Menu, customize, okay. Click, add, gauge. You want to go to RPM. So if you click all channels, it'll list everything that's in all of these different menus here. So you all channels, and then you scroll down to where it says RPM, and they are in alphabetical order, so there it is right there. Click OK, and again you want to analog. Alright, so now you can see that this gauge right here, the sweep is different. So click on the gauge, customize. It's a 8,000 RPM, which is good. And the sweep, here's the sweep right here. You want it to be, you can click on 120 or 270, and that'll get it close. Let's take and click OK. And then let's jump into doing the transparency. Go to transparency 0. That way we can see behind the gauge. Then let's go and the value display. Actually, the value display is this value below the needle. The scales value, get rid of that. And then go down to the border and disable that. And now we got what we want. Other than this, and if you want that displayed, you can, but it could interfere with the picture that is on the gauge. So I would recommend coming back up to the label and see it's not visible. But the next one, the units, this is the units. You want to get rid of that, and now that's gone. And then you click OK. Alright, now we can move this farther down, and you can see that the sweep is actually, the sweep is actually too far. So let's go back into customize. The gauge sweep, we want to set this like we did the speedometer, which would be 120 on this background. And click OK, and now you see that it is basically almost set up. So we still have to resize it, and if you can't remember the size of this one right here, you can just click on it, customize, and the size of the gauge was 410. So now we come back to RPM. Make sure you select RPM right here, because if there's more than one gauge in this area, it'll list all of them. So just make sure that when you try to select the gauge that you want to make sure the check mark is by RPM. Alright, customize. Come down to the size, and let's put it at 410, like the speedometer. Click OK. Click OK, and now we need to move it to line it up. So now let's line it up like we did on the speedometer, so that all the segments don't touch the numbers. Actually, that could be a little bit bigger. Customize 410. Let's go to 415. Then let's move this. like that. Let's make this one right here 4:15:2. And again, I'm going fast. And then click OK. And then let's move. Then move this to where it's set up pretty much the same as the RPM. I usually look at the center one up here, and this right here, and this right here to actually center it left and right. But it don't have to be perfect. And once you get this set up, you can see the tick marks are lined up with the numbers. And if you want the smaller little ticks to be like 200, 400, 600, 800, 1000, what you'll do is you can click on the gauge, go to customize, and you want to come down to minor ticks. So this right here, the little ones are actually called minor ticks. The big ones or the longer ones are segments. So we want to put 4 ticks. And again, you just click on that, clear it, put a 4 in, click OK, and now you can see how it's changed to 4 tick marks per 1000 RPM. So now you have a 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, right on up. And again, it's up to you to customize it how you like. You can also do the same thing here. With me, I like to have twice the segments on the speedometer. Click the gauge, customize. So if it has 8, let's put 16. Okay. And then OK. And then that gives you a 10, 20, 30, 40. And each one of the little ones will count as, 45, 55, 65, 75. So that's how you do that. And at this point, I always like to save. So there is your 2 gauges set up. And again, you do the rest of the analog gauges exactly the same way. Let's go to the warnings. So let's go to the menu, customize, okay, and let's change the colors of the warnings or the warnings themselves. Then click on the gauge, click customize, and in the warnings section you can enable low warnings or high warnings. And here's where you change your red lines. So I'll just change this to 5500. No, I tell you what, let's make it 6000. And let's make this right here 6500 red line, and then click OK. And now you've seen it, it's changed. Change the color, go back to warnings, you can click on the color of this, and then it brings you a colored chart. And yellow and red is super bright in my opinion, but you might like it. And I usually choose a little darker red, and the yellow I choose orange, and click OK. Okay, and then that gives you the warnings there. And you could do the same thing with speedometer too. Click OK. Click save. Now, to set up a digital gauge, you can, again, click anywhere on the screen, menu, customize, click OK. Click on anywhere there's no gauge. Now if I click this one, well, I'll tell you what, let's go, since it pulled up a bunch of repeating menu, I'm going to go forward and back to kind of clear its memory. Then click menu again, customize, OK. And then if you click one of these, see, it gives me a GPS speed. So it thinks right now, if I click customize, it's going to want me to change this gauge that we just set up. Well, we don't want to do that. So we need to click on a part of the background that no gauge is on. So we can come out of the area right up here until we find this menu right here so we can add a gauge. And anyway, select gauge, and if you want to install a boost gauge, or actually put a boost gauge up there, you will put sensor. It'll be in the sensor section under map sensor. Actually, I think that gives you the KPA. Let's go to all channels and look and see if we have something under, I think it is under boost. There it is, boost PSIG. Click that, click OK, and then go to digital, and then it gives you a digital gauge. To move it, just click on it, click move, then bring it down. Actually, you can bring it in a smaller one or a bigger one. So let's put this as the big boost gauge. All right, once it's there, we want to customize it. We want the range to be, I mean, it can stay 58. 0 to 58 is fine. We can take and change the name of this. If you don't like PSIG, you can click on this. And right here, if you click there, it'll bring up a type keyboard. And then if you clear it, it's going to clear the whole thing. But we just want to go and clear this part. So click the backspace. And then you can press enter. And then enter. And then that changes it to boost. And once you get there, if you want to do your boost gauge with like 1 point to the 10th, then the precision can be changed to either 1 right on down to thousandths. But I normally keep it just on 1. You do whatever you like. And then that brings you to just 1 number there. So we need to make that bigger. So go down to size. It's already at 50. So let's go to 80. See how big it gets. All right, so that's how big it gets. It looks pretty decent. So let's click OK. Click on the gauge, move it wherever you want it to be, centered or whatever. And now we need to do some more customizing to it. Make sure, see that? I clicked on that and it actually brings up GPS speed. And then it takes you right directly to wanting to do some customization to the speedometer. Well, we don't want that. So we click on this again, click or check the boost, So now we're able to customize the boost gauge. Just be sure you select the right one, because if you move the big one again, you're going to have to reset it up again. So the warnings, again, if you want to see an overboost condition, just put it the way you want it to be. You know, if you want to overboost at 30, put 30 there and enable it. You can have it flash really quick or slow or steady. And it's already transparent. Updates per second. This is how many updates per second a boost gauge can be. 6 updates per second is pretty quick, but you can go full rate. But I guarantee you that your eyes can't keep up with the numbers changing at full rate. So the default is 6, so I'll leave it at 6. The border of this gauge is actually these little brackets right here. So if you disable that, they disappear. And I particularly don't like the brackets because it's got a box already. To change the color of the numbers, you have a foreground and a background. Now, the background color is going to be the color that you see if you have a gauge that is actually not transparent. See this? Black. So if you click background color, it's going to be black. If you want to change it green, select green and click OK, and then your background is going to be green. Alright. And again, if you change it to a color and you want it to go transparent again, you can do that and leave it green. Alright, background color, let's change that back to black. Click OK. And the foreground color is actually the numbers. So if you go to foreground color, you can change the color to them to be red or whatever color you like. If you want to dim it down, you know, as far as the brightness of the white, just bring your little crosshair down here to the bottom, or you can drag this right here down and it'll get dimmer and dimmer. And you can see this box there changing. And this would be good for, like, if you have a background set up for driving at night. And then you click OK. And now you can see that the foreground is actually dimmer than the rest of it. Okay, that's how you do that. Let's go back and change that back to white again, so it'll be consistent. And averaging. So the averaging will actually slow down how quickly this right here changes. I wouldn't recommend averaging a boost gauge because you want to know the actual boost instead of an average. An average would be more on a fuel level gauge, so it doesn't just wiggle up and down with the sloshing of the fuel. So you want the average of fuel sending unit, and you can make an average, you know, very fast down to slow. And I'll just pick slow right here, and you can see how the numbers actually slow down. It doesn't go as wide of a swing because it averages it out. And you don't want to do that. Not on a boost gauge. So none would be for boost gauge. So there, it'll go from 0 to max as quick as the eye can see. And that is it. That's literally all you have to do to set up analog gauges and to set up rest of the digital gauges.